First-photon imaging is a method for acquiring 3D and reflectivity images using only the first detected photon at each image pixel. Our computational imager combines the physics of single photon detection with spatial correlations present in real-world objects to reconstruct accurate imagery. In classical active optical imaging, the object is illuminated with a source of light, and the back-reflected light is detected by a sensor. Reflectivity images are formed using variations in the number of detected photons at each sensor pixel within a fixed exposure time. Even with sensitive photodetectors, accurate image formation using this traditional method requires hundreds of detected photons at each image pixel. 3D acquisition using active optical imagers such as LiDAR systems is achieved using pulsed illumination and time sampling of back-reflected light using a time-resolved detector. Computational processing of the measured photocurrent is used to acquire depth using the time-of-flight principle. The depth or range image formed using this computational method reveals the object's 3D structure. Even in the absence of background light, traditional 3D image acquisition requires at least tens of detected photons at each pixel. In contrast, the first-photon computational imager also involves pulsed illumination of the object, but instead, it only uses the first detected photon at each sensor pixel to capture 3D and reflectivity images. A traditional reflectivity image formed with a single detected photon per pixel is a featureless image of constant intensity, and the depth image is extremely noisy. Noise due to background light and other stray sources further deteriorates the imaging quality. First-photon imaging is based on physically accurate modeling of single photon detection using Poisson processes. To understand this, we consider a raster scanning setup in which the pulsed light source illuminates a chosen image pixel. The back-reflected photons are incident at a single photon-counting avalanche photodiode, which generates a sharp electrical impulse when a photon is detected. The photon detections generated due to back-reflected signals are arrivals in a time-inhomogeneous Poisson process. Whenever an arrival is detected, the electrical output of the avalanche detector is correlated with the transmitted pulse, and the photon detection is time-stamped with picosecond accuracy. Noisy detections may also occur due to background light and detector dark current. However, such detections are arrivals in a homogeneous Poisson process. In our first-photon imaging experiments, the use of a high background level makes image formation even more challenging. Due to the stochastic nature of the photon arrival process, not every illumination pulse results in a detection. We repeatedly illuminate the object with light pulses until the first detection occurs. The first-photon computational imager uses the number of elapsed illumination pulses to recover reflectivity, and uses the detection time relative to the last transmitted light pulse in order to reconstruct range or depth images. We use raster scanning to collect first-photon data at each image pixel. As demonstrated by the first-photon reflectivity data and the physically accurate probability models, the number of light pulses transmitted before first-photon detection is inversely related to the reflectivity of an image pixel. Brighter pixels result in sooner detections relative to darker pixels. Similarly, the time-of-flight data associated with first-photon detections reveals a noisy range image. Both reflectivity and range data are also corrupted by background noise photons, which account for approximately half of the total detections. Pixel-wise maximum likelihood estimation of reflectivity and depth using this data yields poor reconstruction results. Shown here is a point cloud of the 3D estimates overlaid with the reflectivity estimates. First-photon imaging combines the physics of single photon detection with spatial correlations present in real-world objects. These correlations exist because neighboring pixels possess similar structure and reflectivity properties, except at edges and boundaries. In our work, a wavelet-based model is used to capture these spatial correlations. The first-photon computational imager involves 3 steps. In step 1, we reconstruct reflectivity by solving a regularized maximum likelihood estimation problem using the number of elapsed illumination pulses at each pixel. Notice that the text has become clearer, despite it being overlaid on the noisy 3D point cloud. In step 2, we use the reflectivity information and a hypothesis test in order to censor background photon arrivals which do not contain any information about the object's 3D form. As shown here, most of the noisy detections have been censored by a proposed method. Finally, in step 3, we reconstruct the 3D image by solving a regularized maximum likelihood estimation problem using the time-of-flight data at uncensored pixel locations to recover an accurate 3D image. As contrasted here, the First-Photon Imager reveals heavily obscured details such as text and specular highlights, as well as structural features which are unobservable in the traditional processing of first-photon data. The proposed computational imager demonstrates that accurate imaging is possible with first-photon detections, even in the presence of high background levels. The presented techniques are broadly applicable to low-light imaging applications such as LiDAR, low-power time-of-flight cameras, as well as biological imaging.